This is WFYI News Now. It's May 8th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, how nonprofits in Indianapolis can apply for energy assistance. Lawmakers make several changes to how Indiana delivers services to deaf and hard of hearing children, and why it could become even harder to provide safe drinking water and sanitary sewers to Indiana's rural communities.
When it rains and they have periods of flooding, it inundates the entire wastewater system and leads to compliance issues, leads to the services not being able to function properly.
Those stories coming up, but first. A family is suing Indianapolis Public Schools, alleging a first grader at George Washington Carver Montessori School 87 was seriously injured after repeated bullying. Additionally, they allege school staff ignored the student's injuries. The lawsuit names the district, the former principal, former vice principal, and former teacher Julius Jonakin. It's the second lawsuit filed over alleged abuse by Jonakin. He now faces a felony neglect charge. IPS has launched a school safety task force in response to issues at School 87. The district said in a statement it strongly disagrees with the claims. Nonprofits in Indianapolis can now apply for energy assistance from the Office of Sustainability. WFYI's Sydney Dauphiné has more on the new initiative.
Thriving Nonprofits is a new initiative from the Office of Sustainability funded by the McKinney Foundation. Up to 15 nonprofits can apply for assistance to help decrease energy bills through methods like improved HVAC or insulation in buildings. Mo McReynolds is the director of the Indianapolis Office of Sustainability.
We hope to literally see these utility bills decrease for these organizations so that they can put additional money toward feeding families, toward taking care of children, toward ministry, toward getting folks, into homes, like whatever their mission is, so that they can do more of that.
After being accepted into the program, the office will conduct an energy assessment of the building. That data will be used to determine what specific energy investments would be most beneficial. The Thriving Nonprofit Initiative will match up to $10,000 in grant money for projects. I'm Sydney Dauphiné.
Lawmakers made several changes this session to how the state delivers services to deaf and hard of hearing children. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports advocates say they weren't included throughout the process, leading to a bill they say favors oral and spoken language education.
Advocates say they reached out to lawmakers with concerns over an earlier version of the bill, which resulted in some language protecting access to services for deaf education and American Sign Language. But some advocates are concerned the lack of input from the community could cause more harm. Jeffrey Bignell is the director of advocacy with the Indiana Association of the Deaf. Bignell, through an interpreter, says, among other things, the legislation requires the state to provide what are called ASL specialists. But the role is defined by the National Association of State Directors of Special Education.
That agency doesn't have much involvement from the deaf and ASL community. It's more of a medical perspective, not a cultural and linguistic perspective.
Bignell says lawmakers should be working to include the deaf community in the legislative process. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
And for our final story today, President Donald Trump's proposed budget would cut more than half of the Environmental Protection Agency's funding. Among other things, it would nearly eliminate federal dollars to help states upgrade water infrastructure. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Rebecca Thiel reports that could make it even harder to provide safe drinking water and sanitary sewers to Indiana's rural communities.
That funding goes into low-interest loans to help Indiana utilities pay for water and sewer upgrades, as well as address things like toxic PFAS and lead pipes. Lorian Johnston is with the Alliance of Indiana Rural Water. He says without those loans, water utilities in towns like Winslow and Pike County might have to delay necessary upgrades or significantly raise rates.
When it rains and they have periods of flooding, it inundates the entire wastewater system and leads to compliance issues, leads to the services not being able to function properly.
That can sometimes mean sewage where it shouldn't be. The White House budget proposal says states should fund their own water infrastructure projects, but Johnston says these are essential services, and asking rural Hoosiers to pay for such expensive costs up front is unfair. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
It's not clear how much Congress will adopt from Trump's proposed budget. Johnston says historically, lawmakers have preserved this water infrastructure funding for states. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Dodlin and Zach Bundy, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Heron. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.